Good morning, everyone. This is Kris with Inspired Energy. Joining me is Hartwell today, and what we're going to be discussing is a three-part series, a survey of the 9 centers and their not-self strategies. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris.
Yes. So today we're going to begin our 3-part discussion on the centers and their not-self expressions. Can you tell us, Hartwell, are those the same as chakras? Like, what's the difference?
The centers are loosely the same as the chakras, but I think some of the connections that would be useful to make are still to be made. The interesting thing, what the human design says, is that yes, they are chakras, but we think about them a little bit differently in human design. And also there are 9 of them rather than 7.
Right.
And human design says in 1781 with the discovery of Uranus, we actually evolved from 7-centered to 9-centered beings.
Oh, interesting. So maybe for those watchers who missed last week's talk, can you briefly remind us as to what the terms defined and undefined and not self mean?
Absolutely. If you look at the diagram, the human design body graph that we have pictured, you will see that some centers are colored in and some lines are colored in and some are white. That which is colored in is reliable, consistent, and predictable. It's what makes up your auric field. And that which is white is that where you are a receiver of energy from others, where you're not reliable, consistent, or predictable. And so in the undefined centers, that's where the not self dialogue can arise, because these are places where we're strongly influenced by our environment, and so we can develop patterns that take us away from our design.
Oh, right on. So today, as we explore part of the 9 centers, 3 of the 9, where shall we start? Like, which one shall we start at?
Well, let's start at the throat, Kris.
Okay.
The throat is the place. It's like the marketplace. It's like the market square in a small town. It's where everything happens. And so the throat, which is only undefined in 28% of people, so not many people have it undefined, but this is a place that is about communication and manifestation.
So what if somebody's undefined and only 28% are undefined, right? Can you tell us what the not self patterns of the undefined throat are?
For sure. Well, to have an undefined throat is quite an interesting thing. It means you have no reliable voice of your own, and so you borrow that voice from others. But as a result, you might have patterns where you get fearful that you won't have anything to say, or that nobody will hear you, or that you will be overlooked. And so one of the not self patterns of the throat is to think, oh my God, it's like, unless I speak up, nobody's going to notice me. When am I ever going to have a chance to speak? So these can then pressure you to communicate when the timing isn't right. And then you end up distrusting yourself around your communication and distrust the way the environment relates to you.
Oh, I see. So then people with an undefined throat, then there's certain jobs or tasks that they would be meant to do versus those that are defined. So I remember we were talking about this one time, and you said people with undefined throats would make very good public speakers or communicators in that respect, because they could borrow other people's voices and be heard that way.
Well, they can. I mean, that's not to say that people with defined throats couldn't be good public speakers or singers, but it was a way of illustrating that just because you're undefined in a center doesn't mean that you're disadvantaged. You can still be quite gifted. And the the value that would arise for the undefined throat would be, yes, that ability to convey the experience of responsiveness to their environment, which can be a very compelling thing for the listener. Oh, this
Right.
person is speaking with my voice. I really feel like I feel gotten by that person.
Right. So somebody with an undefined throat, can you like give a little hint as to what would make them a more effective communicator?
Yes. For one, trust that you actually will be noticed and invited to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the case that you won't have that opportunity, because your aura will actually call people that wonder what you have to say. So you will be invited. So first thing is to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is to align with your strategy and authority, because then you'll be speaking. Then you will know better when to speak and when not to speak.
Right.
If you develop a pattern of feeling anxious about communication, then it's going to make you feel unpredictable. It might make you feel like, oh, I don't even want to speak at all, because it's just,
Right.
that's where the mind takes over.
Right. Yeah. I having an undefined throat, I can tell you that all of that is true. Because there are many moments where you're like, oh well, should I say something? Should I not? Is somebody going to hear what I have to say? And then of course the not self theme of frustration comes out because you're not being heard, right? Because you're speaking out when you're not meant to, right? So
Yes.
yeah, totally. I've lived that one. So I can relate to it. So maybe we've talked a little bit about the throat. How about if we move on now to the head center? What's going on there?
The head center, I didn't point it out on the diagram, but that the head center is the very top one, and we just did the throat, which is the third one down from the top.
Yeah.
Now the head is a pressure center, and it pressures us to be inspired by life and by ideas. So it in a sense starts or inspires the pressure to look at our doubts, the confusion, and the mystery of life, and to come up with ideas about what's going on with that. Mm-hmm. So it begins or pressurizes the whole mental process.
Cool. So what are the implications of having an undefined head versus defined?
Let's first of all mention that 70% of the world are undefined in the head. So wow. This is the largest percentage of people that are undefined. So if they have it defined, it means that they feel a continual pressure and to think and to be inspired and to work with and think about the major questions in the world. Mm-hmm. How do we solve global warming? How do we do this? How do we do that? The undefined people, what it means is that this is a playground for 70% of the world. This is where they have no consistency and no reliability, and yet they might be amplifying. They will amplify those who are defined. Mm-hmm. And so this is where some of the not self, remember the not self mind picks up dialogues in any undefined center. Mm-hmm. That can potentially take us away from alignment.
Right. It's interesting that I just noticed that the 3 that we're doing today, I'm defined in all of them. So I can definitely say that being defined in the head is a very busy place to be.
Yes.
So it seems like it's almost like a pinball machine, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you're constantly getting this flow of ideas, but you don't know what to do with them sometimes, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And they're coming in so fast and furious. So yeah, that I totally relate to that. So the next, what kind of self-talk arises here from being either defined or undefined in there?
Well, for the undefined head, there can be this pressure to chase after answers. It's like, why am I here? I got to figure this out. Oh, somebody just asked me a question. I need to find the answer. Will I ever be able to find the answer? How do I find the answers? Where do I go to find them?
Yeah, the busy head.
But this is the result of an undefined mind, is what I'm saying to you. The defined mind, the defined head knows how to find the answers because there's a process.
Okay.
And it's actually your job to let that process occur, and it'll happen for you. You just have to make sure you're not pushing it anyway, but you're designed to do that.
Well, so just
the one who's undefined might get obsessed by pointless questions. It's kind of like worrying about things that aren't your job, so to speak.
Right.
Somebody brings up, the problem of tribal genocide in Africa, and you read an article about it, and then for the rest of the day you're stressing about what's going on in Africa. But that's
right.
It's not your job to do that.
Right.
So people will often get caught up in mental issues that are they're not designed to handle, and they spend there could be a lot of anxiety arise out of that. This is why some people tend to be very anxious.
Right. So this is the head. So how about we move on to the root so we can squeeze this in before time's up today. So what do we need to know about the root center?
Well, the intriguing thing is the root, which is undefined for 40% of people, is another pressure center. So we wanted to talk about the head and the root together because they're both pressure centers. Now, the root at the bottom, the very bottom, is the pressure to evolve, to adapt, to meet the needs of the people around us, to move forward in life. It's an adrenal pressure, and it has to do with our relationship to stress. So if you have that undefined, it means that you have no consistent or reliable way of dealing with stress. And so sometimes you're going to be amplifying the stress energy from the environment.
So then people like me who are extremely defined in that area, we create a lot of pressure for those that are undefined to move and to do things, like, because they're picking up my defined area, right?
That's right. And the undefined person can be intelligent about it, and they can say, oh, I'm around people who are defined in the root, and I'm going to use that pressure to get things done more quickly. Or I'm going to say, no, I'm feeling the pressure to get things done quickly, to hurry and to rush. I'm going to ignore that pressure. I don't feel like responding to that today.
But if you are a person who is unaware of these centers and why you're reacting the way you're reacting, then you would be very anxious around somebody who is like that, I would imagine.
Yeah, you could get quite stressed out, and this is where people are pushed out of their own flow, out of their own rhythm. The not self mind will ask in terms of a root center dialogue. It'll ask, how can I get things done? Oh, what am I passionate about? What do I need to be doing here? Oh, how am I going to get this done? Oh, but I don't have the energy. There's going to be all these dialogues that arise around how to, and potential feeling of inadequacy for not being good at dealing with pressure.
Right. Because I imagine, like, someone, for example, I move very fast. So I'll ask somebody a question like, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, let's go. And I'm expecting the other person to make a decision as quickly as I do. But that may not be the case, right?
Exactly. That's very much true. And this is where, for instance, you could be the source of a not self pressure for somebody to veer off their own design.
Right.
And that's not to point a finger at you, because we all do it. We
Right.
somehow accept other people will have the same reality as we do.
Mm-hmm. Right. But you're just following yourself, like what you do, but causes a reaction in others. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, you do you, I'll do me. And this is why we're going through these not self dialogues. It's like we want to learn what is us and what is not us, and resist the dialogue of the not self. Mm-hmm. This is crucial to deconditioning.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to thank you for sharing those 3 centers today. Next week, we're going to be covering another 3. The next 3 that we're going to cover are the ajna, which is the one at the very top.
The second one down.
Right. And then the spleen and the solar plexus. So if those ones are areas that you're defined or undefined in and you want to know more, you can join us next Wednesday at 9:30. Hartwell and I'll be going through that. And we want to thank you for joining us today, and God bless each and every one of you. And we hope you continue to join us. Have a good day.